Hello, good evening, welcome back to the Fallout Bar here at Online Darts. Myself, Jack Gobby Harwood, and joined, as is a weekly occurrence nowadays, by Mr. Cam McFarlane here on the Online Darts YouTube channel. Hello, buddy, how are we?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Yeah, it is literally. I think there's been one, maybe 2 weeks where it's not just been me and you. That we've made this our own, and for some reason, people still keep watching us. So we must be doing something right, at least.
It's what we do as a channel, it's what we do as a brand, it's what we do as an absolute whole. Chat room, good evening. Hello to all of you. I've already seen plenty of comments regarding the crowd's behaviour once again tonight. Do not fear. We will be back.
It will be addressed.
Their behaviour. We've already been having this discussion in multiple group chats throughout the evening, and it will definitely continue. No, Tugboat Jar is not available, you cheeky sod. I'm the host. This is my house. This is how we roll here.
Yeah.
Good evening to everybody in the chat room, though. Evening to Colin, to Craig, Mr. David, J. Rowe, Stephen Pope, Daniel's in once again, JWZ, Malachi's in. Good to see all of you here for the Fallout Bar in association with our friends at BoyleSports. Night number 11 then, and we headed to Aberdeen, the P&J Arena in Scotland for, as I said, week number 11 of the Premier League. Part of me thinks it's flown by, but then part of me, when you think about it, thinks that once again the campaign's dragged a little bit, Cam.
Yeah, I think we all kind of liked the format for a couple of weeks at the start and thought it needed a change, it needed a shake-up, and we thought, yeah, this might actually be it, and we quite enjoy this. And then as it's gone along, it kind of feels a little bit more that it's a bit same every kind of week, isn't it? And we're seeing the same players play each other. There's no big games in it, but the standard wasn't too bad tonight. It was actually quite an enjoyable watch, especially once we get on to the latter stages in the final, which was a little bit good.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, we're going to talk about the crowd, and there's been a lot of conversation online about the crowd's behaviour tonight, especially after that final dart went in. But there's also been a lot of chat about the format, and has it gone a little bit stale already? Look, we've seen 11 different finals for 11 weeks right now, different results, etc., etc. But you still feel like the same kind of guys are losing in the quarterfinals, and we're still seeing these matchups an awful lot, considering we haven't even had the match play yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? And we're seeing this, like you say, it's the same matchups week in, week out. And it makes none of them are now big games. And my concern with it is the fact that when we get to these bigger events, like the match play, and if we're then seeing them play each other again in the later stages, does it then feel a bit of a non-event again? I know it's not as much of a non-event because there's something a little bit more on it than a weekly Premier League win. But if they've still been playing each other every single week, does it take something away from that as well, and some of the edge away from the rivalry? Because you can't have a rivalry when you play each other every week. Like, you compare it to maybe the boxing, where straight away after the game everyone's friends, and unless something dodgy went on at the end of the game or during the game, everyone's friends, and the rivalry goes away a little bit. If Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury fight each other every week, they're going to be best mates, and there's not going to be very much entertainment to it. And that's my concern with it.
It is indeed. And look, these are the things we forewarned about when the format was announced. A little bit short-sightedness in it, perhaps, just to only pick 8 players, narrowing the field in an event that meant more matchups is never going to be the optimum decision, which is what a lot of us thought, and it certainly seems to be getting that way at the minute. Don't get me wrong, the on-night entertainment isn't horrendous in terms of quality of darts. Look, we've had some stinkers of nights, we've had some brilliant nights, we've had some very good finals, we've had some very, very good matchups. Last week we had a contender for match of the campaign in total in that semi-final last week. Once again, Johnny Clayton and Michael Van Gogh delivering again this week as well. You're going to get those levels, but it just feels like There's something not quite right about this Premier League for a tournament that is meant to be almost a flagship for the PDC. This is the one that we're constantly told all the players want to be in. It means a lot to be playing 16 weeks and on TV that often, etc. And you've got to be arguably the other best 7 to 10 players in the world week in, week out. But it just feels a little bit flat this year.
Yeah, it does, and that's the thing. Like you say, we've had some real quality stuff at times, and yes, it is still entertaining to watch it every week. Even the bad games have kind of been close and scrappy, and they've been all right to watch. But like you say, it feels a little bit flat, and it feels a little bit like something's missing.
It does indeed, but we will come back to that, I guess, in a couple of weeks. Let's actually review the evening as we set out to do. After missing last week, Gary Anderson returned to his adoring home fans in Aberdeen, but it feels a little bit. Well, yeah, I suppose like he's more of a Scot than Peter Wright is, but he travelled.
Well, yeah, that's not difficult though. I think I'm probably closer, to be honest.
But he did travel from further away, being a resident in the south.
I think there's probably only MVG that's gone further than him, to be fair.
And even then, I wouldn't be so sure that the UK turned that way would not get you to the Netherlands. Gary Anderson back, but he did take on Johnny Clayton. This one felt a little bit same old with Gary's campaign so far, Cam. He was sort of in it for the first couple of legs. Missed darts at double. He had chances to be 3-2, I think it was. That ended up at 4-2. Stayed in it a little bit. Only picks up a couple of legs once again. Beaten 6-2. And look, there's still 6 weeks left. 5 weeks left. 5 weeks left now. That was week 11. 5 more weeks. 5 weeks left. 5 more weeks plus the finals. It would take an absolute miracle for the Gary Anderson of 2016, 17, 2018 to suddenly appear and romp through this field consistently enough to put him in that Final Four.
Yeah, let's be real about it right now. We'd all love to see it. We all love watching Gary. When he's on, there is no one better out there to watch, really. But we're not going to see it, are we? It's not going to happen. I think this campaign is pretty much done for him, and I'd be rather surprised if we ever see him play a Premier League game after this year either.
What's that little smirk for?
I just think I was just laughing back to the comment from Liam in the group earlier, where he said, "I doubt we see many more years of Gary." And I kind of said, "I think you can drop the M from many on that one. I don't think we see any after this year." And to be fair to him, I just feel like it was a concern at the start that I don't think he really wants to be travelling around every week, to be honest. And I think that's showing in the results we're seeing.
It's that lack of motivation that Gary's had for a long, long time now. No matter how much we all wanted to believe him when he had that little bit of a rant at Weymard at the World Championships about 18 months ago now, that he's going to be in for as long as he can possibly be in, etc., etc. It's a bit like trying to believe that Peter Wright is not going to tinker with his darts, despite that being the PDC press release ahead of today. Last week it was Gerwen Price's new walk-on. This week it was Peter Wright saying that I'm fed up of tinkering, I'm fed up of messing around, I'm fed up of giving everyone else chances. I'm going to throw the World Championship.
Please tell me that he is going to stick to that, because
I've heard it far too many times for him to believe it until I see it. And even then, there's always going to be that element of doubt, because he's just who he is.
He will get bored. I think he will get bored and he'll change. But hopefully, just a few weeks of it. I mean, there were signs tonight that he was playing well. We know how well he plays with those darts, and maybe he will stick to it. And if he does, he could blow everyone away the rest of the year. But
well, you think the match play's coming up, defending champion of that. If he sticks with these and gets on a bit of a run, he was unplayable at the Winter Gardens last year.
Exactly.
But completely different right now. Johnny Clayton, though, look, just job done. Game the one, didn't exert too much, didn't have an awful lot coming back at him. Missed a fair couple of darts double. He was 6 from 14 in the end, but job done for the Ferret.
Yeah, he
Before we
was
do go
pretty
on,
solid, wasn't he? Like we've completely missed talking about Johnny there, but yeah, he was pretty
I
solid,
don't think
wasn't
there's
he? He
any
just
need
did
to
what he
talk
had to
about
do.
Johnny there. I think everybody else in the field would have put in a similar mid to low 90s performance against Gary and got away with it. And that's not a good sign for Gary Anderson, who's lingering at the bottom of the
One
table.
might not have done.
Maybe not. Before we do go on, I was looking back at last week's show, Cam, and whilst we may not have got the scorelines correct, I'm pretty sure both of us had a final four of Clayton, Wright, Wade, and Van Gerwen.
I think we did.
So a little tap on the back for both of us for finally predicting the results of the four quarterfinals, not the scoreline.
I think we did, and we did say this week on the live house as well. We did say that we're going to start writing them down after we predicted them, so that when we come round to do it on the live lounging on a Monday or Tuesday, if we have to do it, we know what we've predicted from the Thursday before, and because I think I actually went different on Tuesday night, and I think I predicted that Peter Wright would get beat by Joe Cullen, which I didn't predict on Thursday night.
When we get to this point later in the show, and you don't have a pen and a piece of paper ready, I'm going to be very, very annoyed now that you've admitted that you knew that bit was coming.
Yeah, I know, and I don't have a paper ready. I've not prepared whatsoever as usual. I've got back from football. I've watched as much of it as possible. Caught up with the rest from before. And I can't actually move my legs either, which isn't ideal.
Yeah, a few conversations in the chat room before we look further in. Mr. Davis says Anderson will go seniors. I'm not complaining about that. Raymond Van Banner as well. Peter Wright's old enough for the seniors, as is Simon Whitlock, as is Steve Beaton. There are plenty out there at the minute that could make that transition pretty seamlessly. Leo says, is there another Premier League this year in Scotland? Yes, we head to Glasgow in 2 weeks' time, home of Celtic and Rangers. So whatever you do, don't go in there playing simply the best, because it does not go down very well, Mensur Sullivan.
I am very glad that you just said that after my flatmate has just gone in there, because he's a very big Celtic fan, and if you'd mentioned simply the best while he's still in here, we may have had an intruder in the show. I
was just warning people not to do so. Mr. David also says, he's made his money in a young family. What would you do? Fair play to Gary. Look, if your heart's not in it, it's time to walk. He can still make enough money from exhibitions if he wants it. I'm pretty sure he's pretty content anyway, being a multiple world champion in the amount of major titles that he's picked up. And there are other avenues like the seniors, etc.
Like the seniors, I still fancy him to kind of clean up right now on the seniors as well.
On to conversation about Peter Wright. Matthew says Wright will always be right. Yeah, that's our concern. Marcus says if Peter Wright stops tinkering Red Dragon, go out of business. I genuinely think it's the opposite. You've got a world number one and world champion.
To the same set, you'll sell 1 million of them.
Exactly. He is the most difficult player to market in the world. And if he didn't have the Mohican and the get up and the different shirts and stuff, he'd literally be unsellable because he never sticks with anything long enough. So I think the opposite, actually. Although Mr. David does not trust him and says he'll bring out the fat one soon. They should cancel the Premier League in Glasgow. I can't see that one happening. Maliki makes a very, very good point. If there's only 2 likes on the stream, you guys can do a lot better than that. Please do hit that thumbs up button for us further down. Dan says tonight was the worst whistling yet. Matt says Luke Humphries take Anderson's spot next year if the format stays the same. You can definitely see it, the form that Luke Humphries is in at the minute. Colin says I'm on the wing and a prayer. Colin says there's still parts of Glasgow where if you went for a job and said you supported Celtic or Rangers, result equals no work. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you which side of that my allegiances lie. Right, let's actually talk about the darts because it is nearly caught. We're nearly 15 minutes into the show already. Match number 2 was Peter Wright against Joe Cullen. This one was a little bit tighter. Excellent performance from Peter Wright, especially as the match wore on. He struggled a little bit early on, gave up a few chances, but 103 average in the end for him, 4 180s, 101 highest checkout, 6 from 14 on the doubles. That's more like the level of performance we're used to from Peter Wright, and that tends to be what happens when he picks these darts up.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is the most ridiculous thing about it with Peter, right? Is the fact that we know what level he plays out when he pulls these darts out, and it is this level of performance where he is absolutely just way ahead of anything he seems to do with any other darts, pretty much, other than a couple of sort of similar sets that he throws. When he uses different ones, it can be anywhere between sort of 80 and 110, but with these, it's generally consistently in the mid to low 100 average, and he's just really good, really solid, really consistent, and if he can stick with these darts, it's what we're kind of expecting to see from him going forwards.
Consistently, like, I genuinely think with this level of darts, he can be week in, week out at the level of performance that we saw from Van Gogh when mopping up, from Phil Taylor when smashing through it in the late 2000s, etc. He is more than capable of staying above that 100 average every single time he puts his foot to that hockey. We've seen it. We've seen it over events. It's just the lack of concentration, the lack of consistency that odd time, but he's just got that level and that extra gear and that bit of belief inside him as well sometimes that just means he would be incredibly difficult to stop. However, let's keep moving on. Game number 3. This one was a lot closer than we both predicted, actually, Cam. We both said 6-3 last week. As the game wore on,
research here, haven't you?
As the game wore on, I genuinely was about to call you out on social media for your inverse trickery. You backed Michael Smith to win about the last 4 weeks, not got out of the first round. This time you've backed James Wade to beat him, and I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute there. And Michael Smith should have got the result tonight. Sub 90 average from James Wade throughout this one, but again, just does what Wadey does, doesn't he?
He does, and as soon as he went 5-4 up, despite him then losing the next leg on Smith's throw to level it up, you do not fancy that man getting broken very often at the moment, do you? Even when he's not at his best, which he wasn't in this game whatsoever, you just knew that typical Wadey, he was going to get it done in that final leg. And he kicked off 140 and you just thought, that's it now, he's wrapped it up already. You just didn't fancy him losing the leg from that point.
Honestly, that has to be an alternative definition of the phrase Wadey in the dictionary very, very soon, because it's just a thing, isn't it?
It is. It has to be in there. Like,
forget going through deep water in Wellingtons or whatever else.
No. Just stick a picture of him underneath.
I'm glad you said Oxford as well, because that's the best dictionary, Mr. David.
That's the only dictionary, isn't it?
There's others, but
I know there are others, but that's the only one that we all recognise as the genuine dictionary.
And as somebody that was raised in Oxford, I take great pride in telling everybody that.
Yeah, I had one, an old hardback one, growing up in the house as a child.
Thanks. Match number 4.
We're really going all over the place tonight.
What a show! Match number 4, and it saw the two Gerwens go head-to-head, Gerwen Price against Michael van Gerwen, and it was competitive at the start, but a ridiculous level of performance after 4 legs. Michael van Gerwen produces the goods.
Well, yeah, exactly that. And this was the one where the aforementioned flatmate of Celtic fan was fairly heavily in on his bet that he needed Van Gerwen to wrap it up. And at 2-1 down, when Gezi was averaging over a ton, he was very concerned. And I calmed him down with a little bit of just saying, Van Gerwen's not kicked into gear yet, just wait. And then, my word, did he kick into gear, because he went from averaging about 94 to averaging 108 in no time and finished pretty much at that level. I think it was just under 107 in the end, but it was just a bit of magic from there, and he kind of ran away with it more than it looked like it would be, certainly early on. If anything, it looked like he wasn't possibly going to get a result, and in the end, it was was pretty much a one-horse race for the last few legs.
Yeah, uncharacteristic doubling tonight at times from Van Gerwen, especially in the early parts of matches. He finishes a 6 out of 10 in this one, but it was definitely a couple of moments in the first couple of legs against Gezi. But yeah, like I said, 8 140s, 3 180s, hard check out of 85, 6 from 10 on the finishes. It just clicked into another gear. For Van Gerwen, who moved into the semi-finals for, I can't even tell how many times that is this year. I don't recall him losing in the first round very, very often. In fact, let's have a look. Week number 1, he lost to Gary Anderson. Brilliant. This is starting well. Wins week number 2, 3, fine, 4, yeah. No. Gezi and Nottingham. Yeah. No, Wadey. Yeah. No, Johnny. Well, that's a few more times than I expected, to be honest. Yeah, that did set up our final 4.
I'm going to come back to that 85 later on as well. Just going to drop a little hint in there. I'm going to come back to that 85 checkout that he had in this game later on.
Okay. Mr. David says the only, although I'm a Cambridge United.
Ooh, controversial. You're allowed to go Oxford Dictionary when you're a Cambridge fan.
Different boats.
You're lost for a second, go.
You definitely lost me for a moment there, didn't you?
Yeah. You were still moving. But yeah, you disappeared for a moment then.
I can't remember what it's called now. Adapter thing has its random moments sometimes. Different boats, and we're better at that one.
Yeah, so we heard that.
Yeah, sounds perfect. Tugs bullying me once again. He says, "Oh, God likes Oxford. What a shock!" #tungsten tough. Look, some of us are just born in a place where we're educated properly. Can't help it. Malachi says, "Are Oxford Dictionary sponsoring the show?" No.
Possibly.
Sponsors are up there.
We'll never turn down any though.
Yeah.
If they want to get involved, then they're more than welcome to have a spot.
Yeah. And Mr. David also says, Gezi just out of match practice, in my opinion. MVG knew and stepped on it. Yeah, look.
Yeah, I think that was spot on. Really.
All out the Euro Tour this weekend with tonsillitis. He's still thrown with what must be a fractured wrist, especially if you put exerting more and more on it week in, week out. He says he feels good and fine on it, but that will not have 100% healed, not in the time frame since when it first happened. Looking at 4 to 6 weeks, I think it was only 3 weeks ago that became an issue for him. Yeah, on to the semi-finals then, starting with Johnny Clayton against Peter Wright, the Ferret. Burgling one against Peter Wright. No, not quite. But look, tight, competitive, back and forth little match, this one. 2 players that just play at the right pace, get on with it. But this is probably where we have to mention the crowd, because it wasn't a massive impact in the match against Gary Anderson further on. Look, you turn up to Scotland and you've got back-to-back matches against Scottish opponents. You're probably going to get some stick, but the odd bit of jeering on the walk-on, that's absolutely fine. But once again, it is a very, very small minority that are ruining the sport in a live venue for millions of people, millions that sit and watch this week in, week out, that go to events, that do whatever. The whistling, shrieking, the deliberate attempts to make a player miss from inside the arena are disgraceful.
Yeah, and there's no getting away from that. And the sad thing is that we expect it to happen, and we all probably knew it was going to happen to Johnny tonight, especially the fact that he could potentially play back-to-back Scottish players in Scotland. It was never going to be good. And I'm fine with booing. I'm fine with them booing him while he's...
Players have all come out and said they're fine with booing. Joe Cullen...
Even when he's on the double. Like, I don't care if he's on the double, because it's just a wall of noise. It's fine. It's the whistles and the shrieks, and it's just ridiculous. And it's just not good enough. I mean, we've seen worse in Scotland. I'm gonna say that in the early days of the Premier League in Scotland, we saw Adrian Lewis getting pelted with coins for quite a considerable amount of time in the early times when he was playing Gary at one point. So it wasn't to that level. Whether that's just because we've had COVID for a couple of years and nobody's got any change these days, I don't know. Everyone just uses card for everything. But yeah, it's not the worst we've seen in Scotland at events, but also it's just not good enough. And we all want to see, we sit here every week and we moan if the standard's not great. We want to see the best starts and the players putting out the best performances. And I just don't understand anyone wanting to go to a venue and negatively impact that.
I have a theory, and there's a lot of people in the chat room now. Marcus says people doing their job wouldn't like
we
it.
We all know why. Half of them have probably got...
the reason. You've clearly not been to a Premier League night because there's absolutely nothing cheap about any of the UK-based venues for alcohol at Premier League. But talk about us a very, very good question. So what can a match official do when this happens other than say stop it? It won't be stopped. Just advertise the party atmosphere. Beer brings out the dickheads and it won't change. 100%. And for me, this is where it's on the PDC. They've built this environment. They've built this monster, and they've let this sort of behaviour get progressively worse. So look, it did start on the Euro Tour, whether people like it or not, and that's not an English thing slating everybody else. It just did. It became more and more of a habit on the European Tour because it's more commonplace to boo and whistle. In other sports, played in Europe, you go to some like Serbian or German football matches, and you just see it that little bit more than you would in England. It is creeping into our game as well, 100%. But the PDC have allowed it for far too long because they were so focused on the entertainment, the razzmatazz, building that atmosphere and environment, especially for the World Championships, which is the biggest Christmas party on earth, etc. This is all on their back. And look, it's not all on the match official. I tweeted earlier, saying thank you is no longer enough. That doesn't deter or stop anybody. And I'm not entirely sure it is the alcohol that's the cause of this. I think it's gambling. I genuinely think the people there trying to affect results are people that have made a bet on the matches they're watching.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it, like you say. I think it is possibly, and whether it's deliberately trying to negatively impact it or not, the fact that they've got the money on the favourite or the home guy, or just that they are that big of a fan of the person, but it's just, and that's, I wouldn't want to go as far as say people are deliberately trying to put them off, but they are deliberately trying to put them off. What I mean is they're not deliberately trying to sort of negatively impact the night. They just think they're getting involved with the atmosphere sometimes and get carried away, and it does happen. But also, I do think there is a big element of it that is people that have got money the other way and can't handle themselves when they've had a bet. And if that's the case, then they should be excluding themselves.
Yeah, and for me, there's a couple of things that need to happen from here, and let's jump ahead to the final as well, because look, there wasn't a great deal to talk about in the semi-final. James Wade against Marco Van Gerwen, a couple of breaks early on, but Van Gerwen, levels above what Wade produced in that semi-final, solid enough, but just faded away, was only ever going one way. Final, Johnny Clayton, Van Gerwen. Clayton leads 5-4, getting whistled, hissed at, etc. Pings an 84 checkout, levels it back up, goes on and wins a decider. And Van Gerwen looks like he's incredibly frustrated with Ross Bray, as well as the crowd behaviour. Now, he's tweeted, and I have heard directly from the venue, that Van Gerwen didn't have a problem with the crowd. His problem was with, and this goes back to what can the referee do, he thought that Russ was calling out on his throw when he should have been directing it before Johnny threw, etc. So he thought that Russ's actions to try and stop the whistling were actually negatively impacting Van Gerwen's own rhythm, because the call-outs are when he was throwing.
Yeah, I mean, how do you want it though? Do you want it to carry on, or do you want it to be stopped. And like we say, they've got to do something to try and stop it. So we know that Van Gerwen likes to get on with it. He's one of those that he's basically throwing it over your shoulder while you're taking the darts out of the board. But also, he wanted it to stop. So,
and I said earlier that I thought when Clayton won and then was asked about the crowd, he had the perfect chance on stage to go, actually, do you know what? They've given me a bit left, right, and centre. I dealt with it, and I thought he was a little bit naive to just go, do you know what? Fine, it happens. But actually, like you said, we've seen it with Gerwen Price before. If you start calling them out, you just get it back constantly.
Worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
This is why the players have a union. This is why they have the PDPA to go and act on their behalf for things like this. Well, they have to now, as a collective group, approach that PDPA and say, we are not happy playing in venues where we're being whistled at on match opportunities. And that has to go and influence the PDC to make a decision. Because, look, this sport is brilliant, and it has been brilliant for so many years, and it's created this party atmosphere. But for so long, we had this party atmosphere where you don't have the whistling. You can have the collective wall of noise boos. They're completely different, and we've said that over and over again. But in the meantime, two things need to start happening at these events. If you're next to somebody whistling, by some chance, one of the 60 people here watching it are next to somebody whistling, call them out on it.
No,
get them to stop it.
No. You can't 100%. Do that either. We've spent enough time in Premier League venues ourselves. It's with the atmosphere and the party atmosphere and the drinking that goes on, it's always this close to going off in terms of there being a scrap, if not there being a scrap every single time I've been. You call someone out on it that's had a few too many pints, you're putting yourself in danger. You can't tell people
if you're around somebody disapproves of it, then that's what you have to do. I've been there and done it myself at the World Championships.
No, but you're putting yourself in danger there. I don't think it's on the fans to be doing that.
And the other thing is that has to be a stipulation added to the tickets, added to your right of entry. Anybody caught whistling, etc., will be removed. Flag it to a steward. There needs to be people in these venues.
That's the way to do it, but it's
calling this out as well. Look, if 9 times out of 10, people aren't whistling once. You can hear on the TV it's the same person, it's the same patterns. You can identify that pretty quickly. You can go to a specific area. If your hearing's good enough, you narrow it down to a small area, then you watch for whoever does it. Bang, get them out.
That's what we do as well. Like I say,
dragged out every single week.
Not on the fans though. Like you can't put it on the other fans to do it because you're not going to get the right response coming from that. It should be on the stewards to do that. They're in the position of authority to do it, and they should be doing it, and they don't get involved, and that's the biggest issue. Again, with the players, like you say, Johnny calls them out. They're back in Scotland in 2 weeks' time. He's going to get it from every single one of them. He's in a strong position where he's pretty much at this stage qualified. He could, like you say, go to the PDPA, go and state his case that we don't want to be playing in venues when this sort of thing's happening, and say, look, if this is going to happen, I'm walking off the stage not next week, the week after in Glasgow, and I'm just not playing, and I'll take the hit on the points because he's pretty much qualified anyway. He could just walk off and not play that game and forfeit, and that's where he's in a really strong position if it happens again to just say no, I'm not doing it, and then something might change.
I absolutely wish. That makes a good point. Just doesn't the MC at the Euro Tour have a way with the crowd between matches now? And it seems out. Yeah.
It was really good at the weekend. Actually, the Euro Tour. I didn't think we got any of it really.
Genuinely, the weekend just gone on the Euro Tour was so good in comparison to what we've seen over the last 18 months. Don't recall anything majorly overly, especially considering a few Germans involved as well. Martin Schindler, one of them, etc. Martin Lukeman knocked out a German, if not 2 Germans. Did not beat Clayton, did not beat Clemens and Schindler. And by the end of it, they're chanting Martin Lukeman's name. That's how good the crowds were this weekend on the Euro Tour that we traditionally have blamed this sort of behaviour on. And yet, a week later, we're in Scotland and we're having exactly the same debate.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm hoping we get the interview clip with the winner very, very shortly. I was told
we've still got second semi-final to do, yeah.
8 minutes ago. No, I skipped the semi-final. I went on to the final. There wasn't a lot to talk about. I moved it all in collectively.
Okay.
Pay attention. What would you like to talk about in the semi-final? James Wade was okay, not quite at the level. Traded breaks early on. Then MVG got into his work and Wadey dipped off a bit. 3 from 10 on the doubles, not a Wadey performance. If he's 6 from 10 on the doubles, he might be a 92, 93 average.
And
but if he's
wins.
6 from 10 on the doubles, he won because he's hit 6 doubles. So, yeah. And then the final was where we spoke about Van Gerwen having an issue with the time that Ross Bray was calling out rather than the actual game. So, yeah, you know. Unfortunately, I think that one's absolutely bang on.
It is very hard to do it in a venue. Like, I don't know how many people the P&J holds. It's probably 5, maybe about 5,000. It's not.
Everybody that would normally know the answer to that has been there tonight, so they're not watching because they're either finishing up media work or travelling.
It's not one of the larger venues that we go to. I don't think. You look at last week in Manchester, and you've got 12,000 there. We're using the upper tier of the Manchester Arena as well. How you control it in there is very, very difficult, to be fair.
Wikipedia says it has 12,500 to 15,000 capacity with standing to 10,264 all seated, but obviously that doesn't attribute for the stage taking out part of that and then putting fans in the floor. Matthew says 8,000.
It's still a lot. It's still difficult to control it with that, especially from the stage. But that's where the stewards have to do more of a job. But
yeah, Nico says, why did Wade and MVG not have walk-ons? There's only walk-ons for the quarterfinals and then the final. It's a time saving.
That we still can't get our head around because it doesn't save that much time. It saves about a minute and a half.
Which is, 6-7 minutes, which actually is either an ad break to them, which is worth more money, or makes a big deal, actually. The first couple of weeks.
I actually think it's a minute and a half.
Premier League nights ran over massively what they should have for the TV schedule, and it put the format of the Premier League at massive risk.
Yeah, no, I when I say a minute and a half, I think that's per game though, so that's 3 minutes, not 7.5.
As far as we know, there were serious conversations after the first couple of weeks about the format being reduced to first to fives, or if not first to fours, because the time restraints just overran massively. And when you've got a TV slot on a channel built in, it costs so much money to overrun. 8,000 ring tonight. Perfect. Thank you very much for the information. Right, we've waffled enough. We are going to hear from Johnny Clayton, and I believe we have Mark Webster ready for you guys as well. Once we've finished that, we're going to start looking ahead to next week, which means you guys know what time it is. Straight into the chat room, you can play along and predict your scores for next week. But here is your winner tonight, Johnny Clayton.
No, it was a bit weird, to be honest. Listen, when it's all the same, boo, there's the same kind of tone. It's a bit of banter kind of thing, but in the end, it was terrible. It was like the whistling were against myself when I was thrown for double. But sometimes when they do that against the player, the player thinks, oh, come on, just do it and shut them up. But it also affects the guy that's from behind, because obviously Michael is trying to beat me, but in his head probably he's thinking, guys, just be quiet, because this guy's trying to throw darts. They pay silly money to come in, or however. If there's a group of them come in and they pay whatever for tickets. Don't they want to watch the best darts they can possibly throw? I just don't understand it. The whistling is ridiculous at the end.
Well,
solid edit, but that 100% backs up everything.
That's what we wanted to hear.
8 minutes.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to hear, and it's exactly the point we made. You go in there, and surely you want to see the best darts, and putting people off and stopping that is a bit ridiculous. And actually, I think that's the right time for Johnny to do it as well, is to talk about it, not on the stage afterwards when obviously it's in front of all the crowd that are still there, and then it gets on his back after that. But to do it post-game in front of the media is probably the right time to do it as well.
Yeah, I'm glad everyone else is picking up on the same thing that I noticed as well. But I think Marcus says it best in the chat as well. They pay silly money. Barry will be happy with that one.
Yeah. I didn't know if that was just Johnny being a little bit tight or whether it was...
I mean, he's won enough. He'd probably know more than we would.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the button I'm about to press is going to be Mark Webster. But at the minute, I can just see black. And after the last edit, there might be a few seconds of black before we see it. But this should be Mark Webster's thoughts on tonight's action as well.
Proper final. Them two boys, the top two in the world for me at the minute. Forget the rankings. Them two are the best two players for me when they're at it. They always bring out the best in each other, and we see it throughout this Premier League. We'll carry on seeing it, and it was a great way to finish in Aberdeen. Shame about the crowd involvement, but I thought it was a fantastic night.
Yep.
Hang on. I'll save the 50 seconds of black screen. No, what are you doing to us tonight, man? Just shake your head very, very quickly.
I can't
anyway,
let's
get ahead to next week's action as we head over the Irish Sea. We move to the 3 Arena in Dublin for night number 12 of the Premier League. Everybody knows the drill by now. We are going to predict the scores of the first 4 matches, all 4 quarterfinals, and then we're going to tell you who we think wins the evening. As we're going through, do drop your predictions for each round into the chat. And whilst you're typing in chat, if you haven't done so already, do click that like button and drop us a subscribe as well. It really, really will help out the channel. Right, Cam, starting off with a matchup that we've seen an awful lot recently because they just keep winning a lot. James Wade takes on Michael Van Gerwen in the quarterfinals. This one could be very interesting.
Yes, it could. Speaking of heading over the Irish Sea next week, you're going to have to find someone else to do it next week because I am in Dublin next week.
Oh.
So it's not going to be me and you for once next week. I am going to be in no fit state to do a Fallout 4 at this point next week, considering I land in Dublin at around about 12 o'clock on the Thursday, and I'm going to the darts.
Not ideal.
No, but I will not be whistling or anything else. I will just be enjoying the atmosphere and enjoying the action. And I think I will be, whether enjoying is the right word, seeing a James Wade win in the first round.
What's going on here?
I don't know. This is 3 weeks in a row now. I think he nicks this 6-5. And I think he just makes himself very difficult to beat on throw as usual. And he gets over the line 6-5 by holding his throw 6 times in a row.
Nope, Van Gerwen wins. I can't do it. I can't jinx my man. Second game, score prediction. What did you say? 6?
6-5.
6-5. Maliki says 6-1 MVG over Wade. I do have the full Mark Webster clip to play you guys in a minute. We'll go through the quarterfinals, and I'll give Cam some time to think about who he's going to put in his final as well. So I'll run through all 4. Then I'll play you a full Mark Webster clip. We've had it edited on the fly, and then we'll progress to who we think will win the final, and then we'll wrap up tonight's show, if that's all right with everybody. Any more predictions, do fire them into the chat room. Matthew said MVG 6-4. MVG... Tog's got Wade 6, MVG 3. Andrew's got 6-4 MVG. Nico's got 6-3. Wade gets redemption. And Adrian's got Wade 6-4. I'm with you, Andrew. 6-4. Michael Van Gerwen for me. Match number 2, Gerwen Price against Joe Cullen. This one's a little bit intriguing, I think, Cam.
It is a little bit, because we've seen flashes from Gezi that he's getting back towards what we know he can do, but we're not seeing it consistently. He's not at that point yet where you fancy him just to run through anyone. He's going to have moments where he's going to struggle, and over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Joe Cullen hit shots at the right time without playing anywhere near his best, but do it a little bit of his own version of wading, maybe not quite as consistently as Wade does, but just doing the right things at the right time and nicking results. That being said, though, I do think Price gets over the line, but I'm going to take 6-5 again, and I think this one goes the distance as well.
I'm going to take Gezi in this one, and I'm going to take him 6-3. Another week without PDC action over the weekend just gives him that little bit more time to make sure that hand is 100% right. Put some more time in on the practice board if he needs it. I know that at this point he probably needs match practice more than anything else, but he'll get that as it keeps coming. Just make sure you're 100% fine. And actually, with 5 weeks to go, I'm more inclined to think Gezi sneaks up towards that final 4 spot or starts putting some pressure on Wright and Wade than I am Joe Cullen, despite the distance at the minute. So it has to start somewhere, and I'm going to go it starts here. A few more picking Cullen. Everybody's saying it's going deep at 6-5 until Adjan comes in and says Price 6, Cullen 2. We will do him good. That's my logic, but I'm going to go 6-3 in this one.
He did have the weekend off this week, though.
With tonsillitis, big difference.
Yeah, but you can still practice at home with tonsillitis. You can still play with tonsillitis. But...
Play with what? No, I'm joking. Let's move on. The old apprentice versus master is back on once again. Michael Smith against Gary Anderson. Two players in absolute dire need of wins right now. And look, it's only night number 12 next week. But the loser of this is not making the finals guaranteed, is it?
No.
They'd be left for 4 weeks to go. Maximum of 20 points. And even then, you're looking at them thinking, now you're struggling.
That might not be enough still. Yeah. I think realistically, I can't really see a scenario where either of them makes it, to be honest. But yeah, the loser is certainly done at that point. I don't know where to go with this. 0-0. I don't
Two
know.
other people have made the 0-0 joke as if to say, do we have to watch this?
I hadn't actually seen that. Yeah, I genuinely think that it might be a draw. No, I think I'm going to back my boy again. Michael Smith gets a win this week, and he wins. I actually think he wins comfortably, and I think we might see this being one where he can just relax and he thinks this is a real good chance where I can just turn up, play my game, and the pace is good for me, and he plays well, and we see him average over 100 and win 6-1.
It's going to happen. The more and more I look at the rest of these fixtures, if it's going to happen, it has to start this week for Michael Smith. His next 3 quarter-final matches: Gerwen Price, Johnny Clayton, Michael Van Gerwen.
Yeah, it has to happen this week.
It has to. Absolutely has to. And look, there's only 8 players in the field, and we're naming half of them as a threat, and you probably don't want Peter Wright in that conversation either. But
not if he's sticking with the same dogs.
when you've got a crack at Cullen or Wade or Gary at the minute, you take them over the other guys in this. Just not.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure you want to crack at Wade right now, to be honest. But
Anderson's 6-5. If Gallagher says they're out now, look, more than likely, yes. But if they fairy tale last minute runs happen in sport, and until one of them, they're both completely out of it, you just sit there and hope you might get a story out of it.
Well, that's it. The winner of this has all of a sudden got a really good chance to win a night.
Tog says, bold prediction, Gando wins the event.
That's a very bold prediction when you consider that he picked 0-0 earlier on.
What's the event? The meat raffle afterwards? Because I don't fancy him in that either, to be honest. It's just not looking great at the minute. Couple of early legs traded right each way. Michael Smith goes through the gear. 6-4. Excuse me. As we approach midnight. These late shows are an absolute killer. Final quarter-final match of the evening, then Johnny Clayton against Peter Wright. This could be an absolute treat.
Oh, it really could. Like, if Wright's had a full week of practicing with these darts and he's feeling confident, and we know how Johnny's playing, it's another one I've got to pick to go all the way. I think it's got to go 6-5 either way around. And I just think Peter Wright, focused and playing with those darts that we know he's best with, probably manages to get over the line in the final leg. 6-5 Peter Wright.
We've backed each other an awful lot in the last few weeks. Not at all tonight, but I am going to follow you on this one. I'm going right. Oh no, am I? Because Johnny's got the darts.
Again, which another thing that we've not got into tonight, but getting the darts in every single game is just not about it. I disagree with it massively.
I mean, it would be the only time one night he does have the darts, but he does have the darts over Peter Wright. I'm still going to go 6-5. Still going to go 6-5.
To Peter Wright.
Yeah.
So, I have actually, it's not focusing on there, but I have.
He's written them down.
We don't need pen and paper these days. We've all got technology. It's in the notes on the
board.
board.
Great cover for the fact you weren't prepared. I like it.
I mean, I'm just a bit more forward thinking and modern, and I decided to save the environment by not wasting a piece of paper and write it down on my phone instead.
A few more comments, and Marcus says, "Am I keeping you up?" And me getting tired at 11:40. Yep. Look, sorry, it happens. What happens when you don't stay at home the night before? Early buses, work all day, sit in the same spot. Do you know how tiring it is to sit in the same spot? I've moved like 4 times all day from this very chair. It's ridiculous. First world problems and all that. Nico says, Wright wins this one 6-5. Tug says, and you wonder why I'm mean to you, God, when you rinse my predictions. Mate, Gary's won 4 games in the entire campaign, and 3 of them are on the same night. It's not really believable that he's going to go on and win another event.
Especially not when, but Tug's saying that, but he did also say it was going to be 0-0. So you can't say that you don't fancy him to win a leg in a game and also win the night.
A few more. Maliki says 6-5. Right, he's gone with me. Silly boy. 6-4. Clayton says Andrew. 6-5 in that one. 6-1 for Mike. G says never bet against the ferret. And a compliment for Cam saying he's super savvy. Not sure about that one. And Maliki says, I'm getting old, cheeky side. I've seen your photo on Twitter. Do not start giving me that sort of abuse, son.
Yeah, let's not start talking about old when it's me and Gob on here, because he's got a few years on me yet.
Don't look it, but I do. And funny enough, the same scenario happens on a Monday night when I'm considerably younger than Lee Boyce and Phil Bars. And if you're listening, Mr. Boyce, happy birthday for earlier in the week, son. You still look bloody old, though. Right, Cam. You're going to have a couple of, about a minute. Actually, it's 15 seconds. You're going to have 15 seconds to consider who you want in the final whilst we hear Mark Webster's thoughts properly. And then, we'll move on.
Proper final. Them 2 boys, the top 2 in the world for me at the minute. Forget the rankings. Them 2 are the best 2 players for me when they're at it. They always bring out the best in each other, and we see it throughout this Premier League. We'll carry on.
Bang on. As well, we said, best 2 players in the world right now. They keep meeting, and that clip definitely finished early once again. Sorry, I don't know what's happening.
Did you play the same one again?
No, I played a different one. And look, the software's even added a bar along the bottom to tell you when the video's about to stop, and it stopped about halfway through you rather than all the way along the bottom of the screen. But, that was Mark Webster with his thoughts. You can hear that full interview on our YouTube channel, as you can Johnny Clayton's. Just head over there once we finish the show. Right, Cam, from your final four, I need 2 finalists and a winner.
I'm becoming a broken record.
You about to predict James Wade to win another night?
I'm certainly predicting to get to the final.
For God's sake, Cam.
I think he beats Gezi in the semi-final, because I just don't think that there's enough consistency from Gezi to beat a James Wade right now, especially an informed James Wade. And then in that final, he's going to play Peter Wright, because Michael Smith can't beat Peter Wright. Which, yeah, no, he's just not going to beat Peter Wright. I just can't see it. But I think Peter Wright wins the night. But I am
very nearly thought you were about to back James Wade to beat the world number 3, followed by the world number 2, followed by the world number 1 to win a Premier League night.
This close to. I was very, very nearly going to, and I just thought, I'm going to be there next week, and I can't physically sit there thinking I want James Wade to win every single game of these.
Silly bugger. Cullen said, "Sack the editor, Gobs." It's Phil Bars. I'm just gonna maybe we're playing the Scottish internet. It's still on dial-up up there, aren't they?
Oh, you're getting booed next time. Whistles, cheers, the lot.
I'm getting booed too. Shit. If any of the Scots are in. My prediction for the final, I think we see it again. We run back to tonight's final.
You can't do that.
Can't do that because I back Peter Wright. Van Gerwen versus Wright next week in the final. And I'm going to go Van Gerwen again. If that's all right with Cam, who seems to have frozen. Not ideal, but let's carry on anyway. Pull me out, and hopefully he kicks back into life very, very soon as we round off tonight. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. As I said previously, the interviews from Johnny Clayton and Mark Webster are available on our YouTube channel. Once we finish, head over there to catch them in full. No live league this week for me to direct you to right now. But you guys, that will be back on Tuesday next week. So you guys can catch that in action as we start from week number 1. Cam's definitely dropped off, and now you can see me full screen. I apologise for that massively. Big thank you to our sponsors, to BoyleSports, who are our co-partners for all of our Premier League coverage throughout this year, to Windmill, to Red Dragon, and to Modus as well. Those guys are superb all through the year for us. If you don't already, do follow us on socials, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Keep up to everything we're doing across all of those. As the chat room is been discussing, hello Cam, there is no PDC darts over this weekend. Have a weekend off from us, from everything. There is county darts. The final of the UKDA will take place this weekend. You've got Magic Weekend up in Rotherham, and a few other games from a couple of the lower leagues. We'll be rounding off. I'll be on stage for 2 days in Matlock for Derbyshire. 36 games coming my way, refereeing. Anything else you would like to say to the folks, Cam, before I finish off this incredibly long sign-off once again?
Well, I was just chiming in about you were running back the same final again.
Oh, is that as far as you got? Yeah, I said Van Gerwen beats Wright.
Okay, so you changed that because you didn't run back the same final because you had predicted
that
Johnny Clayton got beat.
Yeah.
No, that's the bit that I was chiming in on, but then for some reason my laptop completely decided to disconnect from the internet for no apparent reason. So yeah,
it's because I made a joke about Scotland's dial-up, isn't it?
Yeah, just as you made that joke, my internet's still on, it's still working fine and everything else, but
fiber just gave up.
Yeah, so I just logged back in on my phone just to call you out on the fact that you were predicting something that couldn't possibly happen from your quarterfinals, but
mate, anything can happen. That's just the way it goes. But yeah, massive thank you to everybody in the chat room for joining us throughout this evening. Live Lounge will be back on Monday this week in our normal slot. Apologies, we moved it to Tuesday last week because of the bank holiday, and the Euro Tour running Saturday to Monday. didn't really have a choice. We're back Monday night, myself, PB, and Lee, and hopefully all of you guys. And in the Fallout Bar, we'll be back next week after the Premier League. You guys have all been absolutely superb. Thanks very much for watching. And when I find the video, have a good one,
There
guys.
we go.